Variety is the very spice of life that gives it all its flavor. And that's a quote from the 1800s by William Cowper. So, welcome again to The Profitable Photographer. I'm still Lucy Dumas, and I'm excited about today's guest. Before I get started, I want to remind you that lucydumas.com holds the key to lots of things about my coaching, about my podcast, or if you want to look at my photography work, you can always go to lucydumas.com. And as always, it's Lucy with an I. All right, so let me say hello to Ruth Annan. She's the owner of Annan Productions, and she and her team specialize in corporate events and headshots. She's in Maryland, USA. She comes from a broadcasting world, and wait till you hear her voice. She sounds like she should be on NPR. She was a TV director before she transitioned to photography. And her company is committed to providing professional and welcoming services that celebrate individuality and captures what is unique about each client. She recognizes the profound impact of representation. And she always strives to craft an experience encapsulating the essence of each of her clients and celebrate diverse beauty and cherished uniqueness in every race and skin tone. So, Ruth, thank you so much for agreeing to be on the show.
Thanks so much for having me, Lucy. Thank
I'm
you.
excited. I'm excited. And by the
I
way,
am too.
if you think, I wonder if Ruth could coach me or give me some advice, she absolutely would. So you can find her contact in the show notes, or you can just look for her anywhere that you can search for people. So, well, maybe not anywhere. Okay. So, first of all, I would love to know your background and how you got into photography in a, kind of quick, because we got other good things to talk about.
Absolutely. So I actually got into photography back in college. It was a side hustle. It was a gig that I did. But my profession or what I studied for was broadcasting in New Jersey, Montclair State University to be specific. And upon graduating, I was thrown into the real world as a television director, and I
Oh,
built my career. Yeah, I built my career that way, traveling and just recording and, directing television programs, and then transitioned into photography in 2017.
what kind of TV shows?
So I worked for different networks, television networks. The TV shows that we did were faith-based,
Hmm.
but they were children's programs, cooking programs, workout videos, live programs, and I did that for a while. I also did some directing and assistant directing for PBS, and I got to work in New Jersey, which was great. And, I've been in a little bit of everything, sports, television, you name it. I've done a little bit of everything.
So, how did that help you in the photography business and helps you still, I'm sure?
Oh, absolutely. I won't only say photography, but in my life overall, it has helped me, I would say, primarily by giving me structure.
Mhm.
Being in the broadcast world, I often, I akin it to kind of being in service, military. There is a time for everything, and, you're never on time. You're always late if you're on time.
Mhm.
So between scheduling, dealing with different people, and just being able to provide a service to people that people genuinely will love, I owe that to broadcasting.
Mm,
Genuinely do.
awesome. So you said, was it 2017 that you started your own business?
2017 was when I officially started my business, and It was a great year because I was thinking about doing it for the entirety of that year, but it wasn't until December that I actually pulled the plug and I, sort of made that switch. And it was the best, most difficult thing that I could have done business wise. And I'm glad that it happened.
So, how did you decide and find the courage to go for it?
How did I decide and find the courage? I always knew that I would have my own business eventually.
Mhm.
I always felt like I needed to own something of my own. And I'm thankful for the community that I have in my family and friends because they never let me forget that. They always reminded me. Every time I switched from one position to another, they're like, yeah, well, don't forget, you could be doing your own thing. And it sort of just, it took off from there.
And so that day that you said, "This is it, I'm doing that," and you
Oh
told
yeah.
bosses, what was that like?
So that was actually it was tough because the position that I was in before, there were a lot of transitions going on. And when I said that I was ready to take that, take the leave or quit, they didn't receive it well.
Mm,
So I actually didn't take a full leap, if you will. I transitioned as well out of the role where I decreased my full time to
mm,
part time, and I allowed them time to find someone. I even gave them the option of working from home and doing those things, but pre 2020 no one was really thinking about that. So I fully transitioned out actually in the fall of 2018. Yeah.
mm. So you didn't just like jump out of the plane without a parachute. You kind of eased it, which was good for them and probably helped you financially to kind of do that thing.
Right.
Yeah,
Right. No, I didn't take that full jump.
yeah, yeah.
Right.
Uh, my situation was that I had a little business that I was contracted to run, and I had a guarantee with it. It was like an independent contractor in the airport, which was super fun. A lot of cute boys that were
Ooh.
a lot of fun. And then a big recession hit, and they canceled my contract. But by that time, I'd become obsessed with photography. And
Um,
so I just, it was like, what are you going to do now? And I thought maybe I'd be a holistic practitioner because I was really into that. And at the school, when she had an interview with me, she said, "You want to be a photographer." So, just she said, when you talk about that, you just light up like a light bulb. And, uh, but I didn't. I had, luckily, the contract was set up so that I was able to get unemployment insurance for a while. So, it was a pretty sweet, but it did take some courage not to go looking for a job. So,
always, always.
yeah,
It takes
right.
courage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's see. So you mentioned the word representation. So pretend I don't know what that means and explain it to me. In the context, you'd said, where's the note? Oh, the profound impact of representation. So define that for me and tell me what the profound impact is of representation.
I'll tell you what it means for me because I think it's something that can have a variety of meanings. But for me, the concept of and the meaning of representation is being able to see yourself for who you really are and showing up in different places, being able to see yourself show up in different places and in different ways. And for me, as a photographer, as a business owner, I know that based on some of the experiences that I've had, there are rooms, there are places where I myself have not been in physically, but because there were people who were advocating for me, then I was able to have an opportunity or a shot or a seat at the table, if that makes any sense.
Can you uh, illustrate what you mean by that or explain
Yeah,
it?
absolutely. So I will say that in recent years, the business, my business and productions has really scaled. And that's in part because of networking, right? But with networking, I haven't been able to be I can't be in all places at the same time, right? And I have made some connections and established friendships with different people that are in different positions, right? So whether it is a event planner or another photographer, an editor, someone in the business, let's say they're in a meeting or they have someone contact them, they'll say, "Hey, I know someone. I have someone who can do this," and that someone just happens to be me in this case or my business. So me not being in those rooms,
Hmm.
I still have representation. I still
Okay.
have a way of showing up without me physically being around. And I think it's a great thing because I myself have done it for other people.
Hmm. How
Yeah.
how is that different than networking?
Right. I think it's different from networking because with networking, it's still something that you have to do, right? Um it's like, okay, I'm here, I'm doing this because I want to get something out of this versus when you're being represented, it's someone is speaking up for you.
Okay.
Whereas you wouldn't have that opportunity had I not met or had I not spoken or heard of that person. Does that make sense?
It does. So I'm trying to see because in when I think of representation, I think of
Yes.
different people of different races, different socioeconomic backgrounds, different,
Right.
all of that. So what I'm trying to imagine is if you're, um, I'm trying to connect the dots
Right, right. And
with
I
that.
and I would say in this case for me, the fact that I'm a female, right? The fact that I'm my race, it definitely can get in the way of certain things,
Right.
or receiving certain opportunities. So yeah, you're right. That's where the missing link is, where it is the fact that I'm being represented for, or that I'm representing for someone else. Did I
Mhm.
did I make that connect?
Closer. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh,
Okay, good.
so, for
Good.
example, I'm someone who, uh, well, as a female, definitely
Yes.
share those challenges with opportunities, especially early in my career. As a person who is a race that's way overrepresented in the world.
Right. I love how you put that. Yeah.
I have to tell you, I was at a wedding, and I do like white people. Um,
Right.
but
Right.
I was at a wedding
I do
in
too.
I was at a wedding in Idaho, and I live in San Diego, and it is a diverse community, especially
For
where I
sure.
live. And I felt really weird looking around and like bored looking around, and it was just all white people everywhere. And I was like, I don't realize now most of the diversity where I live is people whose native languages are Spanish or their families and so forth. But yeah, so let's see, what was the moral of that story? So if I were in that environment, let's say I moved there, which I won't,
Right.
then because I know you now, then because I do what I can to have a diverse community of people in my life, then I'm able to support you and also yeah. So am I on track? That then if a
You
job
are
comes
on
up
track.
or something, then
Absolutely.
I'd be
Yeah.
like, I know somebody awesome. And maybe I would just, knowing what I know, feeling what I feel, I might actually support you, putting you a little higher on my list in order to promote diversity.
That is definitely part of that. Yep,
Okay.
it exactly on point.
As well as helping you as just an awesome human, but to be conscious. We talked about this a little in advance of our call, is that I realized when I was at a podcast event, there was a panel of several different ethnicities and colors, and they talked about that if you just don't think about it, of course, your world is going to be surrounded by whoever you meet. And in order to grow diversity, like if a photographer wants to have more people of color, people of other faiths, that we have to be intentional about it. And that's when I was like, in my podcast, I want to be more intentional. So,
Right.
yeah. So,
And
how,
and that's
go ahead.
yeah, no, go ahead. I was going
Oh,
to add on to and say that that's the other side of it, right? It's not only the fact that, you now know someone that you could possibly recommend, or someone of color, or someone of a different gender, but you know someone that can also represent those people, right? Not
right.
just that person. And that's what has really helped me these past few years in my business and in my art, because I do consider myself an artist
Hmm.
and I create art, right?
Right.
I'm able to capture people of different spectrums in terms of tones, right? And I also include that in my bio because I know what it looks like to show up and not be captured correctly,
Yes.
in terms of color, in terms of lighting, in terms of just the overall picture.
Hmm.
And unfortunately, I've heard that from so many people where, I'm a second time, I'm a photographer. They've hired another photographer the previous year, but now they're hiring my company, and it's like, mind blown. We can't believe just how we look, the way the pictures look, and that to me says a lot, because it says that not only am I a person that, other people are advocating for, but I'm now being able to, I can capture people in their essence. I can capture how they truly look, and they walk away satisfied. They walk away happy knowing, wow, you get it.
Hmm.
Yeah. Hmm.
So, what I'm thinking that would be a challenge, not like challenging, but like take up this challenge, listeners, is to
Yes.
learn um, how to photograph people that have different skin tones, even spiritual paths. There's, I'm guessing, ways like with Muslim women, you wouldn't put them in a bathing suit if they're very traditional, to do the work of learning cultures and ways to photograph people so that they can have that experience that you have, that's like, wow, I look like me. That is a that's a um yeah, that's another way, not just to have different people than whatever is your most common subject, but also to
Right.
put the work in to figure out how to light, how to color balance. One of the things that I have is a set of actions that you can brush over people and have some that come out a little too red compared
Right.
to, you know, somebody else in the group. Each person can be individually um, toned so they look like themselves, but they also don't look like, oh, do you get what I'm trying to say?
I
It,
totally get it. And it's such a great point that you bring, like kind of a caution to other photographers or other professionals in our field, because it's not just about what you look like or how you show up in photos or even at events, right? It's about knowing a little bit of everything so that you can service the people around you, kind of like what you said with the podcast, where you were, right? The event that you were
Mhm.
at. And it's like, if you're only around the people that look like chances are that's going to be your market. And what happens when someone else comes about, there is that challenge, not so much, always always serving the people around you. It's okay
Right,
to branch out. It's okay to learn, how to deal with all kinds of people from
right,
all walks of life. Yeah.
right. I was at a conference with this wonderful woman, Andrea Lee, and she had, I can't remember, I think she had this person on as a speaker who put on a big conference. And
Okay.
out of like 100 people, there were three women and one Asian person, and everybody else was white. And
Right.
this person got called out for it. And he's like, well, I put out the call. I need speakers, and this is who showed up. And
Right.
then the people calling him out were saying, yeah, but what's your email list? Where did you go? And what the point was that he totally admitted, this woke me up because in a situation like that where there's normally not a lot of diversity, and we also want to throw in people with different sexual orientations
Yeah.
or no, uh,
Right.
that
Right.
that there's nothing wrong with intentionally going after people that would not be naturally landing in our path.
For
And
sure.
yeah, so I love being able to talk about this and share, and hopefully, some people that have never thought about this be
Hmm.
like, I've never thought about this.
Right.
So let's see. So, in your notes about things we could chat about, I loved you talking about how you get different stories from people and that is super fun for you. Can you explain, you know, what you mean by that and why it's such a joy?
For sure. So along with, being able to meet different people and capturing different people in my photography journey, I have found purpose, in the sense that I'm not only photographing people, right? I am meeting people. I'm meeting real people with real stories, and I get stories from. I mean, I have had a client that I followed her cancer journey.
Mm,
I followed her cancer journey from the moment that she was diagnosed, up until the moment that she was cancer free, and
mm,
this was over a span of, I want to say, 6 to 7 years. So she would call because she wanted to photograph that. She wanted to also record. So I also provide video services. And, I've done documentaries for her. She's just been wanting to share her life. So I get involved with people and their stories and their lives. And it's a joy to me because there are also clients whom, I perhaps did their maternity photos, right, a few
mm,
years ago, and they send me updates of the kiddos and what they're up to. And can you believe they're going into the eighth grade? Or, oh my
mhm,
goodness, like we're planning a party for them. And it's such a joy for me because I know that, okay, I'm not just a photographer. I'm not just someone who you're hiring to take pictures. I'm actually now part of your life and I'm part of your story. And I love it. I love it. And that's another thing that, I really enjoy. I have been able to jump from, maternity to weddings to just lifestyle portraits. And now I've landed for the past few years in headshot and event photography. And it's a whole nother ball game, right?
mhm,
Different,
mhm.
you learn different things, And that's the beauty of the field that I'm in. I feel like it's never, I don't think I ever really have a dull day.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
I used to think that headshots were super boring.
Mm,
And now that branding and people are creating more storytelling and more support for helping people succeed in business. And then what you just said is I realized because like I can't do volume if I was doing headshots
right.
or executive portraits because I like to know people. I like to get involved. There was a woman that um, she was a big shot in the science world in
Mm,
San Diego and was getting some big award. And it was just so delightful to get to know more about her. And she passed away fairly recently. Actually, my
mm,
portrait that I took of her was in her obituary and reading because she was somebody that, they published a longer story about her life. And
right.
I just felt so honored and delighted that I got to know her in a
Yeah,
in a small way. So you're just helping me realize how fun executive portraits can also be because these are humans, and I
right.
love humans. They're my favorite people.
I would really hope so.
Yeah. Well,
Right.
some people don't, and they would be in the wrong career if they're
Yeah.
photographing.
Right. And just to follow up with what you were saying, I actually work more with volume when it comes to headshot photography
Mhm.
because we're usually doing this at conferences
Oh,
between
okay.
like one usually the conferences that we cover are 1 to 3, 1 to 4 days.
Mhm.
So I mean we get at least 100 headshots per conference. And I did not like headshot photography. I actually ran away from it. Like,
Mhm.
I'm not doing them. I'm
Mhm.
okay. But it kept coming. It kept coming and I understood that it was a challenge, right? It was a challenge that I needed to overcome. It was something that was obviously going to take me to the next level.
Mhm.
And you'd be surprised that even with volume, the challenge here is you've got about 3 to 5 minutes to really get the best out of someone, and
Mhm.
over time, the more you do it, it just you find ways to do that, and the end results they're always just so amazing.
Yeah.
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 Mhm.
So we don't have to spend all day with somebody to enjoy their company. And I find that I did a few conferences early in my career, and one that I remember the most was a group of radiologists learning about MRI machines.
Mm.
So it goes way back before anybody had them. And so on a break or something, I asked one of the doctors, "What is this thing?" Because when you're doing the photographing in the room, then there's a chance to watch the slideshow and hear the talk
Oh,
and
yeah.
and getting the description, and then how many decades later, 3 decades later, uh, MRI machines, I had a growth in my sinus, and I've had, I don't know, 15 MRIs or so, and they basically probably saved my life because the doctors could see details that you never could see on a CAT scan. So,
Amazing.
yeah. So, and I love to learn. So, I imagine that's fun for you going to different conferences of different people in different professions and possibly nonprofits and things like that, getting exposed to a bigger world. Am I right?
Oh, you are
No.
absolutely right. You learn so much, and that's why I said that there's really never a dull moment. And I find that by the time the conference is over, I have learned so much. And I
Mm-hmm.
come back home and I talk to my husband and my closest friends, And I'm just like, wow, I didn't know that these things were happening in this very same city or in our country or in the world.
Mhm.
And it's just, it's amazing. It's amazing the amount of things that are going on around us. And it's not until I say all the time, my camera has taken me to so many places,
Mm.
so many places. And I'm so grateful for that. I'm so thankful for that. And I'm in some rooms. I also do some work for different nonprofits, and usually I'm in DC. So, DC
Yeah.
government, and yeah, right, right. And I'll share this real quick. My first agent or detail experience was earlier this year, where I was at an event where both Chuck Schumer and Mitt Romney were attending. And I mean, I was just like, okay, this is really awesome. Being able to see all the behind the scenes, right?
Mhm.
Detail coming in like a million times before they walk down, and just getting a feel for what that's like. You learn so much and you
Yeah.
see so
Yeah.
much,
Yeah.
but you can't say it all.
No. What
Right.
what if you're hired for an event where y trying to put this, like, that's a polar opposite slash almost offensive, uh, thing? I
Yeah.
I just won't get into the politics of it, but what if
Right, right,
it's an environment where you just like, ugh, how do you first of all, do you say yes if you know clearly that this is gonna be something that is not going to be a fun experience? And if you say yes, how do you go into that? How do you hold yourself?
right. So I'm a professional first, right?
Mhm.
And as long as I'm not putting myself in an environment where I'm going to be physically harmed, or my deepest core values are in any way, not disrespected, but it's a shock, or it goes against that, um, then I take the jobs. I have in the past, as a matter of fact, but I can't let that get in the way of
Right,
me being able to capture my art, because at the end of the day, the client isn't hiring me for what I feel,
right.
right? Or what I think. And as a matter of fact, those same clients did not know what I felt about the matter, because I was there to do a job. And
Right.
anytime some of those, what I said, my core deepest core values are not impacted, and I'm not physically harmed in any way, I'm showing up. And I also have a responsibility to the people that work for me, because I know that it may not impact them whatsoever. I do disclose the events that I take on before I bring crew,
Ah,
and just to make sure that they know what they're walking into. I never let someone
right.
blindly walk into an event. Yeah. So I keep them in mind as well. Hey, they want the job, or they need to be fed. They have bills to pay. So why not?
Yeah. But
Yep.
let's say it was, a whole gun lobby thing, and maybe some of your crew had incidences that they have post-traumatic stress over, then it'd
Oh,
probably be
right.
good to know, that's what
Right.
they're gonna be talking about, and, you have the choice on that.
Yeah.
Um,
Always. Always.
I'm thinking about how, emotionally intelligent grown-up humans, which I'm assuming you're one, I can just tell.
Oh, thank you.
I'm one also, that we
Right.
could go to things that are contrary to anything that we support and be like a social scientist and just pay attention and look at
Yes.
like me, because social science was my major. I
Mhm.
might do like a demographic survey, like who are the people that are here? What is common with them? And just listen and understand more rather than being triggered. And also, as an emotionally intelligent human, noticing maybe when we're triggered and having our own tools to have that conversation with ourselves and things. Are you? Are you following what I'm talking about?
Oh, I am picking up what you're putting down. Absolutely. And again, I have, I have been, I've attended, I've photographed such events. And again, I'm very similar in that sense where I'm here to find out more. I'm here to learn. I am primarily here to capture, and I do walk away learning a whole lot more than, what I came in with. Sometimes certain things I'm swayed because I'm like, oh, I didn't have that information before. I do now. But for the most part, I can't say I've ever had an experience where I was like, oh, this was just I'm giving that money back, or
I
or
cannot
I
support this
absolutely
in
hate
any
it.
way.
Right.
So,
Oh no, not at all.
yeah. So what I'm thinking about that could be uh concerning for somebody, but is more neutral than anything political, is if it's a
Hmm.
like a witches conference and
Right.
somebody is like, oh, I'm very my church is very against that and this is evil or whatever somebody's thoughts might be, but that opportunity to be like, but I'm going to go and I'm going to do my job and I'm going to
Yeah.
pay attention because I don't have to get any of it on me, whatever that is. And
Right,
then
right.
that opportunity to learn what that's about and have a fuller picture in life. So I
Oh
love
yeah,
it
no,
when I share
that's me.
that
Yeah.
commonality that we like to learn and I can see for me now, although if I had a crew, it's different, but it's so
Right.
much work to be because you have to start early and stay late and go to the social functions sometimes and photograph. And I didn't have to edit back in the day, just hand the film over.
Right.
Although the most fun corporate event that I did, it wasn't really corporate, was a Renaissance festival that was, I think
Ooh.
it was 2 weeks. And I was hired to be there. It was early in my career, but it was good money for me and such great experience.
Oh yeah.
Um, and so much fun to just every day show up and see these people doing amazing creative things in costume and just hand her over the photographs and the negatives and yeah, so I can just imagine all the cool things.
Oh, so many cool
Yeah.
things.
So
Sure.
we're almost out of time. One of your superpowers or one of the things that you and this is so great. Thank you for this whole conversation. Um,
Thank you.
you mentioned that you are good at navigating or you've learned a lot about how to be a mother and a businesswoman at the same time. I know that's an entirely different, longer conversation.
Yeah.
Maybe we could book another time and really talk about that.
I'd love to. I would love to. I'm cutting you off. Yes. Right.
You have just a couple of notes on that in case somebody's like desperate right now to have a concept.
So yes, I do. And yes, we will absolutely have to have a whole nother episode just for this. My business began to scale at the same time as me being introduced into motherhood. So I mean, two completely different businesses here we're talking about. And what I have learned and what I continue to learn about being a mother, being a business owner, a wife, a professional, is that, you know, you can do it. You
Mm,
may not be able to do it all at the same time, but you can do this. And I think for me, I talked about this earlier, being a broadcaster, right, coming
mhm,
from the TV world has really helped me delegate, has helped me
mm,
to stay on time, stay on task, on track, and just to be able to plan things out because primarily I have to make time for my kiddos. I have to make time for them. But I also want them to know that mommy, she's here with us, but she also still has a life, right? She's
mhm,
got a professional life, a career that she's passionate about. And I couldn't do it without my husband. I couldn't do it without my immediate family, the people that are there to watch the kids and, care for them while I'm away, tending to my professional career, to my needs, right?
Mhm,
So
mhm.
it's amazing, but it's hard work like anything else.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Hmm.
I my mom was a stay-at-home mom and preacher's wife until
Wow.
uh I don't maybe I was 10, and she wanted a color TV, and she took in ironing so that she could get the
Yep.
money. And then she was like, the heck with this, honey, I'm going back to work at Penny's part-time so that
Wow.
our finances are better. And also, I have some money that's my discretion. And she was so much happier.
Yeah.
And I didn't mind my mom being gone some of the time. That's great.
Yeah, yeah. I just real quick, I thank you so much for sharing that story about your mom. I during the pandemic, my light began to dim and I was, drifting away from photography, from my passions. And my husband, he pulled me out of it. He's like, you just don't seem like yourself. What is going on? What can we do to help that? And like what you said, your mom, she enjoyed that. It makes a difference. So I'm thankful that I was able to notice that and go back into it. And I love what I do. I also love my family. So it's a nice switch.
Yeah,
It really
yeah.
is.
Um, one of my guilty pleasures is watching this terrible show called 90 Day Fiance. And and there's a lovely couple that uh, di- didn't have as much conflict as they egg others on.
Right.
And they have 3 kids now, and she wants to go back to work. And he's
Oh.
just appalled. And I'm thinking,
Oh.
she's going to be, and she's like, I'm not here to um, just be a mother. And there's a lot of pushback. And I'm thinking, what you just said, that those 3 kids to get to see their mom
Yeah.
doing more. Um,
Yes.
one of the frustrating things as a business coach is when I'm working with or uh, or a mother who wants to build a photography career doesn't book a coach, like they'd love to work with me, but
Yeah.
they say their husband says whatever they spend on their business has to come out of the business.
Wow.
And I think if like I'm just surprised at this day and age that there's still that imbalance. The 70s, we were like, hey, come on, women are people too. And all that equality stuff, if you
Oh,
remember the
right.
attempts. And
Lucy, we
that,
are still human. That's
yeah,
that's a
yeah,
fact.
yeah. And that the
Yeah.
burden of children is still, it's so predominant that and I will say there's lots of wonderful dads who are equally supportive in their families. So I'm not saying that
Right.
about everybody, but do you have some thoughts that if we've got some dads listening, um, and yeah, and maybe they're just not thinking about it in the way that
Absolutely.
you think they'd love to know?
Yeah, and I can only pull from my own experience, and that is invest in your family, invest in your wives. If you know that this is something that she wants, it's okay to set some time aside, talk to her because most likely she was there for you, right? Holding things down and helping you with your career or taking care of the children, taking care of the home. So in return, do the same for her, and it will help you in the long run.
Oh yeah.
Because a thriving wife, come on, really. And I don't just mean thriving in money, business, or numbers, but just overall mentally, emotionally, when she can be stable, especially when it comes to what she wants to do, if you can just support that just for the time being, yeah, I can assure you that they'll most likely work out
Yeah, yeah, it's a win-win.
for you.
Well,
Mhm.
thank you
Oh,
for
yeah.
that. You put that way better than the way I think about it, so I appreciate that, Ruth. Well,
Thank you.
um, I the clock on the wall says that's all. We're just about done.
That flew
So
by.
so I wanna remind people I'm gonna do just a little quick wrap up at the end. So stay tuned for that. Um, and how do people get in touch with you? So, question one, if people have questions, they want to look at what you're up to, where should they go?
So, the first place that you can find me is on Instagram. My handle is Annan Productions. And then you can go to my website. On there, you'll find my contact information, my email, my phone number, and we can chat on there. I absolutely love talking to other professionals or people just starting out. And, anytime the opportunity arises, I'm totally open to it.
Great, great. So, parting thoughts. Is there something either you would be like, oh man, I wanted to bring that up, or just something you want people to hold in their hearts from this conversation?
You can do it. You can do it, and you should definitely do it. We are in a time where small businesses in general are thriving. A lot of people are probably looking for what you do and what you have to provide. So just find ways to be able to take that leap and just do it.
Love it. I love it. Um,
Thank you.
thank you so, so much. And we're going to chat a minute after, so maybe we can set up that longer conversation.
I'd love to.
Yeah, I really appreciate you saying yes and this deep and fun chat.
Thanks so much, Lucy. I appreciate what you're doing for us too.
Take care.
You too. Bye-bye.
Well, here I am after more fun chats with my guest, and sorry you weren't privy to them, but I'm going to have her back and she's going to do a deep dive into the ways to be a mom or a dad that's got a lot of responsibility with kids, or anyway, all that stuff that we just touched on at the end. So, summary, we talked about the value of diversity and how we can be intentional about it in everything we do. So, in our photography businesses, in our if we're teaching or coaching or anything that we do, um, it's more fun. That's what I heard from here. And also, there's really interesting stories to be had and connections to be made. So, just want to encourage you to think about where in your life you could be more intentional and include people who normally you don't run across every day or aren't contacting you. Reach out to them in whatever capacity, whatever you're doing in your life. Cultivate it. We talked about how corporate events can be a really awesome and educational and very profitable because she's got a team. She's got a very successful business with corporate events and headshots and some video. She does some video. And then in navigating being a mother and a businesswoman, we talked about how that can actually make um, life more interesting for the kids. It can benefit the family in general, and it's okay to get help. I heard her say that. So that's my little quickie wrap up. And I'm so, so grateful that you are listening on a regular basis if you are, or start now because I love to know that the people that I'm chatting with or the info that I'm sharing with you is having a benefit out there in the world. And please send people my way. Alrighty, that's it for now. Bye.